Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Jimmy Dore Show. Special guest in studio today. She's the host of Empire Fires on the Telstra English Network. You can see it on YouTube. She's right here. It's Abby Martin, ladies and gentlemen. Hi, Abby. How are you?
Hey, great to be here.
So you went to Palestine. What would you say is the biggest, most common misconception people have in regards to the Israeli-Palestine conflict?
That it's not an equal fight, and it's not a conflict that just fuels each other. There's one side that's colonized and the other side that's colonizers, one side that's oppressed and the other side that's the oppressors. It's a land that was a colonial settlement project, openly ethnically cleansing people. It's pretty much the most obvious example of settler colonialism that's still going on, and ethnic cleansing. And they've just been given carte blanche under the Trump administration, because you see bills now being presented in the Knesset that want to annex the entire rest of the West Bank. Another big myth that we hear is that a two-state solution is possible, and that's what we need. When you look at how the West Bank and Gaza and Jerusalem, which are the three territories of Palestine, how they're all laid out, there is no state to be had, because you can't just conjoin these three random things over like this giant map and be like, okay, this is your state. Gaza's an open-air prison where they send, people to fucking die and starve. It's all controlled by Israel. There's 90% unpotable water. The West Bank is a territory that is all littered with illegal settlements. So you go to these Arab villages in the West Bank, and there's just a settlement on top of an Arab village. Like, you have to be really insane to move across the world and want to move right on top of an Arab village when there's like hundreds of miles of empty, arid land in the rest of Israel proper. So two big myths is the two-state solution. Really what there needs to be is one state with just equal rights. That just is the only thing that can happen. And just the whole equal fight. I mean, Palestinians cannot own firearms. They're under military law. Like, they are literally under martial law in the West Bank. They can't even hold a flag. They can't be a member of a political party. If you're in a congregation of 10 people, that's like illegal, because it means that you're like part of an organization or a protest. So all of these things, imagine being under like martial law, where you're just policed all the time. You have to go through these crazy checkpoints. You're harassed, you're dehumanized. If you're found with something that can be construed as a weapon, you can go to jail for 10 years. People who post things on Facebook, the amount of likes and shares that a Facebook post can get, if you post a photo of someone who died, you can go to prison for the amount of like days of the likes and shares of the Facebook post. So there are so many horrible things, not to mention there was just 500 kids arrested. Like, I just saw a report of how many kids are tortured and arrested. So people, Israel's whole survival is based on projecting what it does to Palestine onto themselves. So they claim that they need this giant security apparatus in order to be safe. That's not true at all. They are illegally occupying an entire swath of territory, and they are policing and brutalizing an entire population on a daily basis. And it is not an equal fight. And we just hear, the first thing I remember after 9/11 was seeing that propaganda footage of Palestinians dancing in the street. And I also remember hearing that Palestine did it. So what does that kind of propaganda do? Like, just planting the seeds and just this indoctrination. I didn't even know what Palestine was until I was 18 years old. So I think that we're just so indoctrinated and brainwashed with the one side of the narrative. We don't really know the truth, and we don't know how bad it is. Man, it is really, really bad, and it's way worse than I thought until I went and saw how crazy it is. There's this place called Hebron that is the most visual representation of apartheid I can fathom. It's just people are just in cages. Like, Palestinians live there. It's become a ghost town. Israeli settlers have come on top of them and put cages where they just throw like diapers and alcohol, and just like they just treat them like animals, because that's honestly what they are. I also went and talked to Israelis. I talked to hundreds of Palestinians. I also went and talked to a lot of Israelis in Jerusalem in a place called Tolerance Square. And I was talking to them. I said, what do you think about the situation? Like, very general questions. And about 90% of them said openly genocidal things like, let's carpet bomb them, let's exterminate them. So I think that a lot of people don't realize kind of the fascistic tendencies of Israelis and the settler colonial mindset. It's not a very peaceful society, and it's not necessarily like a democratic society like it paints itself to be. So they want to claim that these settlers are really extreme and they're an aberration. That's not true at all. It's the same kind of sentiments inside Israel than you would see, out in the settlements. So it's disturbing.
There isn't a big do we run the risk of making the mistake of that Israelis are the Likud party, just like the Americans aren't the Republican Party, right?
Sure.
There's a lot of people who push back against the wars and push back against stuff. Isn't there a lot of people inside Israel who push back against the apartheid state?
So there are a lot of people, and this is a thing that you'll see also, is a lot of people, left is a slur. There are a lot of liberal Zionists, people who kind of paint the language of human rights and the two-state solution. And yes, they are pushing back. They hate Netanyahu. They hate the fascistic takeover of the country. But they still, at the end of the day, think that the occupation is like
moral
in a way. Like they want a more humane occupation.
Okay.
But a lot of leftists have fled. My friend Ronnie Barkin, who is an Israeli anti-Zionist, says that leftists are getting harder and harder to come by there because there's only so much you can take in a society that's becoming increasingly fascist. I think that Israel started off a lot more communistic. It was a lot more of like these kibbutz type people who were like socialist minded, and now it's become a very different project. And I mean, it's just, and it doesn't even matter really what Israelis think at the end of the day, because what needs to happen is restoring basic human rights and ending the apartheid state. So whether or not they do it they're not doing it within Israeli society. That's why the BDS campaign outside is so important. And that's why Palestinians ask us, please help us. And this is the most effective tool that we have to put pressure on the Israeli government, because it's not happening within the country.
Boy, that BDS movement is a whole nother ball of wax.
And speaking to really quick point is that Dickinson and other cities, the BDS criminalization it's the most criminalized form of protest, and even people in Houston can't get aid unless they pledge to not boycott Israel.
Not to boycott Israel. So again, that's not because of Russia. That's because of people. Israel's bought our government. That's why. Just like our government is corrupted.
Just like the NRA. It's just another...
They're another influence group that does things that Americans don't want, and they do it because they buy off, because of the way we finance our goddamn campaigns.